So now we're going to begin the debrief for the director. So that way that everybody can kind of have an opportunity to kind of hear about how we're interplaying with government. And you can also continue to ask questions in the Q&A. So Tommy, when you get a chance, can you bring James Washington forward and just let me know when he comes forward? But for the time being, I'm going to share my screen and share a little bit about what we're doing here in the Data Science Initiative with respect to research. So we just heard a presentation from Dr. McCrary on how the government is advancing data science research. He did not want it to be recorded. However, he did say that we could share his slides. So if you want a copy of the slides, please reach out to me and or my team. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the interplay between government, data science, HBCUs. So back in June of 2020, the National Science Board, where Dr. McCrary is the vice chair of, they put out a statement on racism in science and engineering. And they actually called for increased inclusion of Black people in science and engineering. So this was very explicit, very direct request that came from the National Science Board. My suspicion is that Dr. McCrary may have had a hand in this. They said, we commit to increase support for research at historically Black colleges and universities. And they said that they're going to act intentionally to remove barriers and ensure the U.S. science and engineering environment is one in which all are respected and valued. We're almost to a, I'll be interested to see how they've made progress and how are they going to actually quantify or qualify that they've made progress in their effort here. Also, this past year in January, there was an HBCU Partners Act. Partners is an acronym, Propelling Agency Relationship Towards a New Era of Results for Students Act. So in this, if you have not read this act, this is a really interesting act where they actually go over different components as to why this is needed. So if you haven't read this one, read it. I do read these acts in my spare time. It's kind of crazy. And this act says, despite efforts to counter a historical legacy of inequitable funding and notable investments by the federal government and many state governments, resource inequities continue to plague HBCUs. So this Partners Act is aiming to address those inequities through funding agencies, through the federal funding agencies. And just, I guess about a week ago, the President, Biden, put out an executive order on the White House initiative on advancing education, equity, excellence, and economic opportunity through historical Black colleges and universities. So this is an action that just came out last week. So I just pulled out a couple of items, but again, a professor and me, I give homework to read on this act. The aim really is to increase opportunities for these institutions to participate in and benefit from federal programs. So, and I just picked out two that speak to federal funding. It's really asking the federal agencies to break down barriers and expand pathways for HBCUs to access federal funding, and also to strengthen the capacity of HBCUs to participate in federal programs. Now, you may ask yourself kind of, why is this needed? HBCUs oftentimes don't get a fair review when it comes to funding. And so this really is looking at where are those touch points that can be addressed to make sure that participation really includes everyone. So just briefly, I'll talk about what we have done with the Data Science Initiative and how we've kind of interplayed with governmental agencies at a federal level. So the first was back in June, the NIH, National Institute of Health, they held an artificial intelligence machine learning consortium. They're pitching for that. I think they're in the process of funding now. We'll see how that pans out, to advance health equity and researcher diversity. And so it's the Aim Ahead initiative. So with this initiative, they say that the AI ML field currently lacks diversity in its researchers and in its data, including electronic health record data. So they want to address health disparities and inequities for underrepresented communities, as well as better engage underrepresented communities. They say, quote, underrepresented communities have tap potential to contribute new expertise, data recruitment strategies, and cutting edge science to AI ML field. And I was one of the two keynote speakers in this forum held in June. And so we'll come back to that in a moment. So the other Washington joined, and we're going to come back to looking at data science and health in a moment. Also, I guess last month, August, I served on a panel. So there's this National Artificial Intelligence Research Resource Task Force. So this calls for the National Science Foundation in coordination with OACP or the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy to form this task force to investigate the feasibility of establishing this national resource that really is looking at AI and develop a roadmap detailing how they should do it. How should this research be established and sustained? What should they do? What should they address? How can they support? How can they promote fairness, equity in AI? So their topics, they're looking at, ownership, who's going to own and administer this? What's the model for governance? Resource, how do you better disseminate high quality government data sets, requirements for security, and what's the plan, right? And so this is something that, so when we create these new initiatives in the government, they actually go through a process of listening to the community. I'm not sure how wide reaching these are. That's why I want to bring this to y'all's attention, but because they're going to have a few more forums that will be coming up, and they're all public, so the public can come and address and attend these. So I served as a panelist where I talked about artificial intelligence and needing to make sure that we develop these AI-informed technologies with diverse folks in mind. Because if we don't, we're going to really cause harm to a large, to people, we'll say it that way. Also, NSF is also listening to figure out, well, how do you do this data science in education? And so the EHR, that's the Education Human Resource Directorate at NSF, the National Science Foundation, they're hosting this town hall. You got to register. They're going to have speakers and open discussions where they're going to talk about, and actually NSF will listen to the speakers and listen to the audience to get information about research across disciplines and fields. What are some ethical practices, approaches to data science, teaching and learning in data science? And I'm going to be a lead speaker for the fourth session, which is on justice, equity, diversity, inclusion in a data science for all movement. So NSF is in a phase, not speaking on behalf of the foundation, but NSF is listening to the community to figure out where should we go at data science education. And they're looking at it from K through, it's all levels of education from K through 12, undergraduate, graduate. How should we be thinking about this? And what are some of the, frankly, what are some of the things that NSF should fund to move it forward? So just to share that recently we just were awarded a few grants with NSF. So I'm just going to briefly share what they are to give you an idea of kind of where the data science initiative is heading. So initially, the data science initiative here in the Atlanta University Center, in my first year, we focused on building out data science research and education here at our institutions that we work with: Clark Atlanta University, Morehouse College, Morehouse School of Medicine, and Spelman College. We have a faculty advisory board, and our faculty advisory board said, hey, we want you to branch out and work across all HBCUs and have a wider scale. So here we go. So I'm a co-PI on this NSF award. It's the National Data Mine Network. So the goal of this project is to enable undergraduate students to learn data science with hands-on work in research or data science projects that are informed by industry partners. So each participating institution, our institutional focus will be MSIs, both HBCUs, HSIs, tribal colleges, and so on. So each participating institution will have a node, and it's led by faculty members with 3 to 4 undergraduate students. So the network would actually directly fund the undergraduate students to work on these projects. So I'm doing this along with my data friends, Mark Ward at Purdue, Catherine Ensor at Rice, Monica Jackson, American University, who's also a double Clark Atlanta alum, and Donald Ladon, who's that American Statistical Association. So this idea is to take the data mine that's been very successful at Purdue University and ramp it up to a national scale with a focus on engaging students at minority serving institutions. So we're very excited about that project. Another project that we are working with is called Identifying Assets and Collaborative Activities to Support Student Success and environmental data science at MSIs. So the aim of this project is to increase capacity in environmental data science through improved access to training and workforce development resources for diverse students populations. So we're going to bring together folks from historically Black colleges and universities, tribal colleges and universities, and professional organizations to build resource networks. What are some of the barriers in data science education, and co-create together a set of recommendations focusing specifically on environmental sciences. So I'm really excited about the interplay of this project, and I think we're going to be able to generate some really interesting data science that relates to the environment. So we're doing this with the Academic Data Science Alliance. They actually have a conference coming up in November, so that will be soon coming. And Carol Sutsi, who's of the Native Biodata Consortium, Carrie Jordan of the Carpentries, and we also have the National Ecological Observatory Network and Quantitative Undergraduate Biology Education Synthesis on the project as well. So the third project that we're involved with is it's a discovery workshop to enhance data science education by leveraging data science from the African diaspora. So last year we piloted a course on data science in the African diaspora. What we want to do is build this course and polish it up and create new modules that can be infused into the course. So we're going to have a 3-day workshop. We're going to have about 60 participants come and collaborate to develop, test, and refine our data science modules that incorporate social and racial justice. So we really aim to inform future research and collaboration around how to practice undergraduate data science education that explores topics of the African diaspora with the aim of improving data science education for all students. So we're excited about this and what we can find and what we will develop. So I'm doing this along with some of my HBCU friends here, Moses Garuba of Howard, Sajid Hussein of Fisk, Latanya Brown Robertson of Bowie State, and also Jerry Volsey of Spelman College. And Dr. McCrary had mentioned this grant in his presentation. This is on increasing accessibility through building alternative data science pathways. So the aim of this one is to build a 3+2, 3 years at the bachelor's, 2 years at the master's, where the bachelor's is in a STEM field at Spelman College. And then the students will go to Michigan State to complete a master's degree in data science. They're also going to be developing a minor in data science at Spelman with a target of STEM students. And so with this project, they'll be able to develop best practices or promising practices on how to create pathways for STEM majors who seek to bring bear the power of modern data science methods into their STEM field of study, both at Michigan State and Spelman. And as Andrew pointed out in the chat, this is a PI initiative, both with Michigan State and Spelman College. So Andrew Chrisley at Michigan State is the PI on the Michigan State side, and then Monica Stevens is the PI at Spelman. So this is a really fun team, and we're really excited about what this will bring to Spelman College and also to the entire AUC, and we're happy to support it. So with that, I'm going to stop share because I probably said a mouthful there. And I see that James Washington has been brought up. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A. If you have any questions that pop up. But for right now, so James Washington, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, so good to have you here today. So what are your thoughts with respect to data science and the health sciences? How is data science coming into the health sciences? What are your thoughts around that?
Well, from the research side, we're seeing that it's becoming really an integral part of everything that we do across really all the different biomedical disciplines. And as a result, we're needing to bring more bench scientists who are just used to looking at the biomedical aspects or the behavioral psychosocial aspects and getting them versed in data science.
That's
So
great.
we really want to accelerate that process.
Oh, thank you. You know, I didn't introduce you. So James Washington, can you just tell us who you are and just, tell us just briefly what you do?
Hi, I'm James Washington. I'm a research administrator and staff scientist at Morehouse School of Medicine. I support the Cardiovascular Research Institute Department of Physiology and Department of Pharmacology, Toxicology. And I've been like the lead project manager for most of our research collaborations where we've tried to integrate data science into our process.
Great. So why do we want to integrate data science into our processes or into health science? What's the benefit around that?
Well, actually, I think Dr. McCrary said it well, is if we're not at the table, we're going to be, if we're not at the table, we're going to be the supper or whatever it is.
On the menu. Yeah,
Yeah, on the menu. Yeah, that's it.
that's it.
It's, it's, all right. When we talk about, as HBCUs, we also always talk about health equity. Um, Really, AI, machine learning, data science, this is a new frontier where if we do it right and make sure that we're part of the process, we can actually gain some ground in health equity. But if we do not, we will end up falling behind both as scientists, researchers, but also our community ends up hurt because uh again, Dr. McCreary said this as well. It's people like us bring the issues to fore about our community. I mean, even though you hear grandiose things from the NIH, NSF, it's us that really from the grassroots level where we keep saying, hey, look, you need to do more before that happens. That doesn't just happen automatically.
That's right. Well, yeah, because a lot of these health technologies that are coming down, they're actually informed by artificial intelligence or machine learning, where these models, the AI ML models, are being trained on data sets of people.
Mhm.
And one of the challenges that these technologies are trained on data sets of people that are not of diverse populations. They don't look like
Exactly.
me, they don't look like you. So, and I told this to my students the other day, this may mean that when I go to the doctor and get treatment, I might die because the technology was not made with
Yeah.
people like me in mind. And so that's really, it's not, oh, it's cute, we should do data science because it's cool and it's fun and it's
Right.
hip. Nah, we need to have these diverse populations, diverse views in data science, in artificial intelligence, in machine
Yes.
learning, really for the greater good of the entire country. Because if we don't get it together as a nation, a large population of us will really be at despair.
I totally agree. And what you're talking about in data science is actually what has happened with drug development. Yes, there's wonderful drugs for hypertension and diabetes, but have any of you ever thought about, well, man, how come we can't get off this? My grandma, my parents, why can't we get off this stuff? It's because a lot of those drugs were developed in clinical trials where the African American and participation was like 2% or 1%. So it's skewed. They weren't developed. I mean, they won't harm us per se, but the effectiveness that was tested scientifically and empirically isn't showing up for that particular reason.
Yeah, and we're seeing that same thing in data science. So hopefully with NIH's initiative, with health sciences, that will push things forward. I think that my fear, being on the data science side of things, even though of course I love health sciences, is that when we look at health disparities in the NIH landscape, I have my math friends, my data science friends, computer science friends. I'm not sure if they're in the NIH scope. So like when one person asked about, can I get into DOD for data science, even though I'm a consultant entrepreneur, the answer is yes. It's not clear to me that NIH has really opened the door.
Right. You said it right.
I could be
Yes.
wrong, and you can tell me
Mhm.
I'm wrong because obviously I have a little data bias going on here, right? Limited data set knowledge going on. But I'm not sure if NIH has opened the door beyond their traditional health sciences, their traditional hospitals, the people who they fund. And my thing is, what did Einstein say? If we keep doing the same thing and expecting different results, then
Right.
that's insanity. So how are these governmental agencies going to think beyond and really have this convergent approach to bring these disciplines in to solve these complicated problems? How do you think we're going to do that?
Well, the Aim Ahead initiative that we've actually partnered with together to put a proposal, I think that's something in the right direction because it encourages entities like us that have those relationships to pull those parties in. But I definitely think they need to be more intentional. And again, from the presentation today, I like the fact that you talked about how the military agencies will look at a great idea. I don't think NIH is there yet, and being at an HBCU, often we don't have the capacity. You know, we have people that are talented, and without that capacity, we don't have too many people that put out 300 and 500 papers and all that other kind of stuff, and they end up getting disqualified, but you didn't hear their idea. Their idea might be visionary. I want them to get to the place where, hey, if the idea is visionary, we don't care if you have out 100 papers. If this can make a difference and transform the landscape, let's do it. So that's where I want them to get to.
Yeah, high risk, high reward. And I think
Yeah.
even the MSI report by the National Academy of Sciences, it encouraged the Fed agencies to create different pathways into getting research funding. Because, you know, initially in our country, research funding was built in a way to, how do you just say, benefit or interact with a closed set of institutions.
Mhm.
So the question is, how will we re-envision how we're doing this, the funding at a national scale to really address some of these hard problems, and a lot of which these problems are data driven, and really doing it in a way that's impactful and moving it forward. I think Punch, the director of the National Science Foundation, if you ever see him speak, he's like, you know, he's me on a calm day. He has so much energy. It's amazing. And he's really much, you know, bench to bedside. We have to have, you know, for social good, that sort of thing. We have to get out there. They're going to have this new directorate coming October 1st on translation, innovation, and partnerships. So we really need to see how the STEM community will respond by taking their STEM research and then moving it into something that really is of societal importance. And with data science, a lot of what we do in data science really does directly lead into, you know, what we do. I mean, anywhere from, you know, those sensors when we wash our hands at the in the sinks in the airport, and they don't recognize our skin tone because they weren't built with technology for us, you know.
Oh, so
Anywhere,
that's why they act up. I never knew that. Like, come on, work.
that's an example where, you know, it won't harm you like some of these health technologies, but it's an annoyance. And yeah, it has been shown that the yeah, those hand sensors weren't built with everybody's hue in mind.
Wow.
Yeah, didn't know that, and that's a technology, right?
Wow, I missed that one.
Mhm.
Wow. Huh.
I have random data facts, I suppose, that sort of thing. So if anybody has any questions, I know there are some people that are still around. You feel free to put them in the Q&A if you have any questions for either Washington. But if not, we'll just keep chatting for about 5 more minutes, you know, if you don't have any questions. So you asked about how does one get into data science, and Dr. McCrary talked a lot about Department of Defense and a National Science Foundation, National Institutes of Health, and also NASA and all these funding agencies. So what has been your perspective on interacting with this grant world? Because you're in the throe of it, right, with Dr. Taylor's lab. So what has been your experience?
Um, there's two things. We want to develop both students that that are trained up in biomedical, but also know how to integrate the data science in it and think about it. So I would say right now with the curriculum we have some introductory things, and we want to get them to think translationally and to think how they can resolve things using data science. But the other thing, which is why when Dr. McCrary answered that one question about people who are not academic, we've already developed this model where we want to take it to either private funder or NIH or another part of um, the grant community, where it's about workforce development for the non-academic track, where you have people that are talented in IT, data technology, but they're not going to go to the necessarily 4-year university, then the master's and teach and uh, like our environment. So we're trying to develop those in a dual way.
That's good, because really it's going to take everybody to figure out how to do this thing of data science, not just the people, the researchers in the know, but really
Yes.
data science impacts across the disciplines, anywhere from, if you're doing text analytics in the humanities to looking at health related data with the electronic records to whatever, atmospheric data, you name it. There's a lot of information. And sometimes our eyes just can't make sense of what we are seeing.
Yes.
And we need that computer to help us kind of figure out and peel away the layers so we can really understand better about what's going on with all this information. We're all bombarded with information on a daily basis. So,
and let me add too, we're also new at just hiring people who are purely data science programmers, coders, who can, all right, we can ask the questions as scientists, and then as the programmers, they can go do it. And you have to understand, from an academic institution, that's different for us. When we think of IT traditionally, we're talking, oh, the guys that keep the networks together. And no, those aren't data scientists or the bioinformatics people that just process the data and the high throughput and all that stuff. No. They're related, but those aren't the people that we need. So even educating deans, chairs to understand, no, this is a different kind of information technology professional that we need to move the work forward.
Yeah. So I say, so at one time, when I worked on mathematical biology, I would say that I would use mathematics, applied mathematics, to uncover what could not be found in a lab, because I could mimic a biological process on a computer and kind of have computational experiments, what if this happens, then what, if this happens, then what, and kind of look at how a biological system would interact under different circumstances. So I see data science acting in that same way, where you have all this stuff that you're generating from the lab or from patients or from what have you, but you have this lump of information. Well, how do you kind of make sense of it and organize it? And you can organize it through data science, and then start to maybe see some patterns, maybe make some predictions, maybe find some relationships that could be, right?
Yes, yes.
Whenever I do biology and health sciences, it's in math, it's always about the answer, right? People want the right answer. But in biology, it's about the right question, because the more we know, the more we don't know. Right. There's so much going on.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah. All the stuff that's going on in our bodies, who knows, right? But it's about the right question. What questions are we asking? How are we looking at this? And I feel the same thing, that same analogy with data science, that we can use that as a tool to uncover what's going on in our bodies, to uncover how we're interacting in our environment, to make sense of what's going on. So for me, it's an exciting field. So I've kind of traversed from applied math to data science, somewhere in between, hybrid. But it's a fun journey. It's a fun journey. So thank you, James Washington, the other Washington, for being here. So one more time, I'm just going to do a quick shout out for our upcoming Student Data Science Symposium. That's going to be on Friday, September 24th. And we invite all HBCU students to submit a resume so we can help connect you with jobs and with people who are looking for graduate students. We also encourage faculty in the broader community to come and attend, support the students. We will have exhibitors there, and for the exhibitors, we'll have opportunities for you all to network with the students through some round robins on this. The platform is really interactive, super fun and cool. So come out to our inaugural Student Data Science Symposium. It will be a great time. So with that, thank you for joining us, the two Washingtons in the house, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and we will send the slides out to those who register. We'll send out Dr. McCrary slides to those who registered. Or so someone asked about the slides. I'm assuming they're talking about Dr. McCrary slides, right? No, nobody wants my slides. But if you do.
No, it should be both.
Oh, it should be both? Okay. All right, cool. Well, great. It's great to have you. I'll do both just because you said so, right? And we hope that everybody has a great day and enjoy today's both seminar with Dr. Victor McCrary and also the debrief with the director with an esteemed guest of James Washington from Morehouse School of Medicine. Have a great day, everyone.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. You too.